reader is Tomás Morin, and his poetry collection, A Larger Country, was a winner of the APR Honickman Prize and runner-up for the Penn Joyce Osterweil Award. He is the co-editor of the anthology Coming Close, 40 Essays on Philip Levine, and his translation of Pablo Neruda's Heights of Machu Picchu will soon be published by the Copper Canyon Press. Please join me in welcoming Tomás Morin.
Thank you. Good afternoon. So Erin, I'd like to echo what Erin said and thank Malvern for having us here this afternoon to share some poems. Back in 2007, this British artist did this portrait of then President George W. Bush. And what was unique about his portrait is that he took his source material. He took his pornographic magazines, tore out the pages, cut them up into little bits, and then arranged them into a collage of Bush's face. It's a very disturbing image. So disturbing, in fact, it followed me around for a while after I first saw it. And this poem was sort of an attempt to exorcise that giant, dirty face of Bush from my mind. Presidential portrait. Upon first seeing the shadow-boxed collage of the 43rd president, I thought, his face is a kaleidoscope of bodies. Later that night, I stared at my own face in the window, bent, fluid, like a dying animal's. In the morning, I started an ode to the artist who cut out the women he found in magazines like coupons in order to fashion Bush's face. I wanted to applaud the cheap irony, but kept returning to the blameless curve of an arm, or the idea, rather, of that arm, and of tapered fingers a father would have cradled while crossing the street, or the wet feet of someone's daughter hopping in her galoshes over piles and piles of yesterday's snow, now turned the color of traffic. I couldn't escape. Even when I slept, he was there. When I woke, I told him, enough already. Sincerity is dead. But he only smiled and seemed about to stumble into a speech on the mutilated millennium, or how nations could beautify their hinterlands the American way, $1 at a time. Starved for affection, he follows me everywhere like a puppy. At church, he tears the bread and laps the wine because he'll believe in anything once. Whenever we enter a grocery store, mothers will cover their children's eyes because I was all wrong, you see, about the fingers and the arms and the feet. Even the blame, most of all the blame, because the portrait I saw was a fog, a bank of pixels teased to within a blot of themselves, so that I couldn't see the array of vulvas, each carefully trimmed anus jigsawed into a patch of pubic hair to make the sweep of his coy lips, which are now in the shower with me crooning Love Me Daddy Blues in his best Bessie Smith. After I've toweled and shaved, slipped into my best suit a la Keats, I'll sit at my desk, cloaked in a fabric so prehistoric, it'll be hard to tell what is more monstrous. The proud head wobbling on the couch, or the party-colored clown lost over a blank page for what seems like years, searching its deep white for a pattern, a single sentence to drape over the monsters of the world. Back in the 19th century, there was this group in New York City of bird lovers who thought that wouldn't it be a great idea to make the trees and the skies of the U.S. even better and prettier if we could take all of the birds that appear in Shakespeare's plays and bring them over? So they tried this, and the first attempt failed, so they tried again. And the second one was successful. That's why we have European starlings here. So this is a poem about that. British birds in Manhattan. The horses crossing the cobblestones startle the starlings, and as I lift my arms to calm them, it might as well be 1890, and I might as well be Eugene Shiflin ambling in Central Park with cages under my arms, my pockets full of seed, muttering my Henry IV. When the flock returns, it's for a sandwich, half eaten, tossed by a woman with bird hips, whistling Expressway to Your Heart. Will never know she just nailed her part in a story about good intentions, nor that it will end somewhere in the city on a street sign when rush hour meets the stony, sausage-scented breath of starlings, calling out in a perfectly pitched American key, shit, fuck, bastard. Most people smile. Some even wince. But one dreamer will always blink heavily and want to leave his car to hunt the park's muck for Hitchcock's lonely lovebirds, but he won't, because it's not 1890, and he knows there are no more claims to stake for art. Having heard this song before, he'll continue the anonymous crawl toward home, where he stars in all the old dramas as beauty with huge, haunted hands, a Roman nose built for love, and a wrecked, sentimental heart that sighs like a bug in the beak. The home front. The war was supposed to have been swift, but then the seasons changed, and then the years came and went. What remained the same were the faces, long and dark, of the wives perched in the windows, the lean sisters walking the streets in summer, interrogating me with their eyes. Why are you here and not there? I didn't have an answer, so I followed them home and filled the empty chairs for a while, wore the clothes of their husbands and brothers, told stories about my bad back. Every morning the neighbors would tell me I had been missed up the street, around the block, that someone's mother had wept alone over her soup while music blared upstairs, how a widow had fallen asleep, her ear to the rug, listening for the swallows trapped in the floor. I could hardly bear these tales of suffering, so I did what anyone else would have done, and rose at dawn to fight the jay and the rat for the right to scour the doorsteps and the alleyways for yesterday's papers. In my sink, I worked the death-heavy tabloids with soap, dashes of phlegm, till I had a paste I could fashion a forehead or an ear out of, all the geography of a face like my own. When the landlord asked, what was with the leaning towers of newspapers, the cans of flesh-tone paint, the pile of hair growing in the corner, I told him I needed reinforcements, to which he shrugged and simply said, don't burn the place down. By month's end, I was on every couch, shirt starched, cologned, wearing my best slacks, watching the dining tables bear the weight of the empty plates, the solemn cutlery. While on the outskirts of some distant city, ringed in fire, someone's son sat in a hole dreaming of the black phone on the bureau. During the day, I keep the dogs company, the parakeets that whistle Vivaldi. Watch the place while everyone works, my silhouette in the window a warning to would-be thieves. As the weeks turn into months, I settle in and learn family trees by heart and leave my hair on the pillow. Before long, the honeymoon is over, and I am swimming in wine, and forgetting to fix the faucet, to walk the trash to the curb, to buy flowers on anniversaries. And so they yell and scold while I sit and stare at the meatloaf, contemplate the beets, their shapely roots, all that vertiginous color which makes me swoon and want to swap apologies, to welcome the return of another season of peace. For those who aren't familiar, a cento is it's a poem that works. The form works sort of like a quilt. You take lines from other people's poems and then you quilt them together into a poem of your own, ideally without changing anything. Which is why I think this is probably the best poem in the book, because I didn't write a single line of it. Idiom of the hero. We were born ruinous. Poor mothers cry. Was it worth it? Was it worth it? From wall to wall, like a cradle's rockabye. Outside on the road, already the appeal of night. On rusty grass, girls receive soldiers among the blueberry barrens. The soil is tired, and for all this, nature is never spent. On the wall, the dense ivy of executions, always right at hand. Then, under apple trees, in between horror and hunger, beautiful mythomaniacs with platinum hair, rebuilding structures, while time, impotent, disintegrates. My soul is simple. It doesn't think. Something strange paces there now. Secrets, yours and mine, not great secrets. A time comes when you no longer can say, my God. You can take my hand if you pretend no one conjures our dust. These things I have, a withered hand, fetor, sweat, the stench of stale oranges, an undisturbed, unbreathing flame, and tiny sky creatures buried under the snow. They represent, I fancy, a version of heaven. We commit them to memory, which is a larger country. I'm going to read one newish poem and then close with by reading one section from the translation that Becky mentioned that's coming out this upcoming week. 112th Congress Blues. Between those symbols of vision, the pyramid and eagle, in God we trust, sits in sturdy caps, where it is testified since the 1955 Congress yoked Yahweh to the sawbuck, which the nickel would say was about time, because it had been preaching the faith ever since the last days of Lincoln, though back then it carried a shield and not the mug of Jefferson, he of the splendid mind that cleansed the Gospels of Plato by that miracle of miracles called reading, until all that was left was a Jefferson Jesus, who was wearing tie wigs when he ascended to the dome of Monticello, from where, on a day without clouds, he could see down from the little mountain, past the apple and peach trees, all the way to the debating loons on Capitol Hill, who believed then and now in evil, that there is a hell with the devil 2 shades redder than Oklahoma dirt, that you can know him by his goat hoof, or his less famous chicken foot, which you can buy, nails intact, at the grocery store, where they are called chicken paws, not feet, which is no doubt for the squeamish who can't bring themselves to eat a foot, though they have probably chewed and ripped apart a fried leg or a breast, with such enthusiasm it would make a hen or two probably faint at the sight. And to the good vegetarians wondering where's the divine justice in all of this tearing of flesh, they have only to listen to the crunch of the special recipe skin as it cuts the cheek and gums of my brother carnivores, just enough for one of my kind to yell, God damn, and call up his state rep, who, knowing nothing better to do, proposes a law that already exists, when he should instead order a 2-piece special with a biscuit and bleed a little and run his tongue over it until he can remember for our country it's never really been about money or God as about the pain in which we trust. So in the heights of Machu Picchu, it tracks the journey of a speaker who feels homeless, not just in a physical sense, but also in a spiritual sense. He feels disconnected from his community, from his country, from himself, from his language, his history, and in his attempt to try to find himself, he comes across the ruins of Machu Picchu, and as he ascends, he starts at first to connect with the Incans, and then he realizes that he finds real family, real connection when he starts meditating on the people who built the ruins, the nameless, the ones who no one remembers. So this part, if I can find it, I'm going to read is from when he's already up on the mountain and looking out at the Machu Picchu and addressing the ruins. So I'll read it in English first and then in Spanish. Through the confusing splendor, through the night of stone, let me plunge my hand and let throb inside me, like a bird imprisoned 1,000 years, the old heart of the forsaken. Let me forget today this joy, which is wider than the sea, because man is greater than the sea and all its islands. We must fall into him as into a well, to emerge from the bottom with a bouquet of secret water and sunken truths. Let me forget colossal rock, the titanic scale, the transcendent breath, the stones of the honeycomb. And from the plaza, let me today slide my hand over the hair shirt and blood-stained hypotenuse. When, like a horseshoe of red beetle wings, the furious condor pummels my head as it takes flight, and a hurricane of hungry feathers sweeps the somber dust from the diagonal stairs, I do not see the swift beast. I do not see the blind cycle of its talons. I see the ancient man, a servant, the one sleeping in the fields, I see a body, 1,000 bodies, a man, 1,000 women, under an ill wind, darkened by rain and night, with the heavy stone of a statue. Juan Stonecutter, son of Huiracocha, Juan Cold Eater, son of a green star, Juan Barefeet, grandson of Turquoise, rise to be born with me, brother. A través del confuso esplendor, a través de la noche de piedra, déjame hundir la mano y deja que en mí palpite como un ave 1000 años prisionera, el viejo corazón, el olvidado. Déjame olvidar hoy esta dicha, que es más ancha que el mar, porque el hombre es más ancho que el mar y que sus islas. Y hay que caer en él como un pozo para salir del fondo, como con un ramo de agua secreta, de verdades sumergidas. Déjame olvidar, ancha piedra, la proporción poderosa, la trascendente medida, las piedras del panal. En la escuadra déjame hoy resbalar, la mano sobre la hipotenusa de áspera sangre y silicio. Cuando, como una herradura de élitros rojos, el cóndor furibundo me golpea las sienes en el orden del vuelo, y el huracán de plumas carniceras barre el polvo sombrío de las escalinates diagonales, no veo a la bestia veloz, no veo el ciego ciclo de sus garras, veo el antiguo ser, servidor, el dormido en los campos, veo un cuerpo, 1000 cuerpos, un hombre, 1000 mujeres, bajo la racha negra, negros de lluvia y noche, con la piedra pesada de la estatua. Juan corta piedras, hijo de Huiracocha. Juan come frío, hijo de estrella verde. Juan, pies descalzos, nieto de la turquesa, sube a nacer conmigo, hermano. Thank you.